Hello and welcome to episode 26 of my mostly stock career. We are starting off in the tracking station because I've been looking at transfer windows and we have quite a few of them coming up very shortly actually. So if I just take a look, yeah, pretty soon I would say some of them are going to be coming up. Now, the first one that's going to be coming up is actually Moho. Because Moho's transfer window, I want to say, is maybe 25 degrees from a 90-degree axis. So, I mean, if we decided to do something like this and just, pretend this is our 90 degrees, even though I can't exactly draw a straight line, then about there, this kind of line is Moho's transfer window. So we're going to be aiming for that, which is going to happen very shortly. I have been sticking on the Duna mission and just kind of transferring all the science back. So if we actually go to the Space Center, because I transferred the science back, I actually transferred 2 loads of about 500, which means from the 900 we already had, now we're at almost 2,000 science just from the mobile processing lab, just from processing data. We also have apparently done some contracts that I haven't looked at yet. Okay, we explored Ike and science data from space around Duna. Alright then. However, we need something for Moho, but first, before we build something for Moho, I wanted to check out this building because I haven't actually been in here in a while. Simply because, well, we've been busy with Duna, we haven't looked at our new research just yet. And let's see, that's the large probe core. Actually, those are really good. I am curious though, because I know solar heating is something that happened, which means to go to Moho, we're going to face a lot of heat just for getting close to the sun. So I'm wondering what might be a good power generation method to kind of try and avoid that, because we're going to be running very hot, which means nuclear engines are probably a bad idea because they'll overheat, and it's probably also a bad idea to try and mine since that generates a lot of heat too. We'd probably just want to bring a mission that's all capable of getting there and getting back without any difficulties. So I'm just looking at these different parts. I do really want this, but in order to get these, the RTG generators, or RTGs, they're radiothermal electric generators, I need to get this one first, specialized electrics, which is going to be 1500. Basically, those would be the only 2 nodes I can get because I don't actually have 2100, since these all cost 550, meaning I can't get 2 of them. I could only get the radiothermal electrics. And I don't know if that's the only thing I want. I kind of wanted to see if I get xenon. Let's see. I'm just going to look through these really quick, try and decide which ones I want, and then we'll probably be back when we take a look at what we're going to build for Duna. Now, sometimes I would like to do more of the actual construction on some of these vessels that I do. But at the same time, I find it to be tedious, even if I time accelerate the video. It just feels tedious, like I don't have a lot to say or what I'm thinking, because I'm really just aiming for a particular amount of delta V, and I'm not really I don't really design for anything but that, and I just kind of try and fit on the right amount of mass to the right amount of weight to make something work a particular way. So basically all this is going to be is we have our main probe here, which we're going to actually have to go recruit another Kerbal for now that I think of it, so let's not forget that. We have a scanning probe so that we can scan. Actually, this thing was originally designed to mine, but now that I can't mine, there's not much point in bringing the probe. Yet I designed the rest of this for the probe, even though the probe's only purpose was to allow. Anyway, we're just going to take it as it is because it should work the way it is. So it's quite a large rocket. We're just going to kind of disassemble it as we launch it, but we do need to grab another crew member, so let's do that first. Let's go to the astronaut complex. Now, we don't need a scientist because we're only going to do the experiments once. We don't really need to worry about resetting them, since only the materials bay is going to be the thing that doesn't get 2 shots. We have SAS as well because we have a probe core, so we don't really need a pilot. I'm thinking we want an engineer, so let's see, what engineers do we have? Only 2 by the looks of it. We have Barney and Paddon. Barney is a little easier to pronounce correctly, so we're just going to take Barney with us because, yeah. Of course, he won't be able to fix anything, but he will give us Kerbal Engineer So I guess he's useful. And all that I need to do now is ensure that my staging is looking decent enough for the first couple launches. And it does. So let's get this thing going, and we'll go to the launch button. Now, this is a massive rocket. It's insanely heavy, and yet it survives on the launch pad all on its own, so I am quite impressed by that. Of course, it's going to take a minute to load up. And here we go. Now, because we're using that gigantic engine, it surprisingly sits on it without braking, so I don't need to worry about launch clamps. Anyway, full throttle with our 5 gigantic engines, and spacebar to, of course, launch. And we're actually turned backwards, so I'm going to turn the correct way. And we have Barney here going to space. So, one of the designs of this was that it was going to go all in one, meaning that we're going to go from launch and go straight to Moho, because we're almost at the window, which means we're going to get this into orbit. We're going to wait a little bit longer for the actual transfer window, and I'm going to throttle down and start turning some. And once we get to the actual window, then we're going to send this thing off over to Moho, get in Moho's orbit, drop the satellite, and then land. So, all in one. We probably should have started turning a little earlier, but I still think this has more than enough fuel, so it's not going to be an issue. Hopefully. If it turns out it doesn't have more than enough fuel, well then, I guess we'll just have to cope with it. So let's see. We are slowly rising. We need to drop this now. Of course, I need to use those small Separatrons because those things will destroy the engine if I don't. Because they're actually... they don't move away fast enough, and they don't because the decoupler doesn't have enough force to drive them away. So doing what I did with the couple of Separatrons really helps, especially when moving 3.75 meter parts. You definitely want to use Separatrons, just because it really helps you. And judging by how much fuel we have in here, I'm going to change up the staging. I actually want to drop all the mass from this fairing a lot sooner than originally was intended. So we're switching to orbital view, and because we're at 60 kilometers now at our apoapsis, I'm going to start turning much more heavily, since we're going to be hitting 70 very soon. And we don't need to worry about vertical velocity, we need to worry more about horizontal velocity. Yeah, you can see we're actually at our apoapsis right now, so we can start throttling down and just getting ready for this. Now that we're at 50, I think it's safe to get rid of this fairing, so let's just drop that. Of course, it shatters into 10 million pieces to reveal our 2 small craft here. But from here, I think it's going to be pretty standard into orbit. So let's see. Our vessel mass is still at 250 tons, which is quite impressive since we actually dropped a lot. So this thing was totaling about 300 tons at its initial amount. And now that we are going up towards our apoapsis, about 30 seconds away, let's go full throttle. Now, here's a trick that I don't know if I've actually talked about in real time yet or not, but it feels like I have. Maybe in post-commentary, though. But when you're actually looking at your apoapsis, see how it's at 20 seconds and it keeps going down? Well, it's stage first, so now we have 2 mainsails, of course, pushing this massive thing. But when you actually see it going down by the seconds, you can tilt back. So if you notice, I'm tilting away from the planet again. And if you watch, it actually will slow down how quickly it falls, and you can potentially actually make it start rising again. See how now it's going up to 6 seconds, moving up to 7, and of course I can tilt back down to make it reduce its time. This basically lets you sit at apoapsis at all times. So if you look now, we're at 7.7 seconds, and as it goes down, I can actually lean more forward to, of course, get into my full orbit faster. But as it approaches 0, I can lean back to kind of make it so it never actually reaches 0. So it stays under 10 seconds at all times. And now it looks like it's going up naturally, so we can just face our prograde marker and finish up the burn. Actually, we are going to go under. but we can tilt back to make our apoapsis fold back in front of us and basically teeter on it so that we are always at apoapsis, meaning we're always being pretty efficient with our fuel. Wow, I actually cut the throttle, but apparently it did it for me. So let's drop these and initiate this stage. We're not quite in an orbit yet. So that wasn't intended. That actually used more fuel than I thought it would. It was intended that those would get me to orbit and then some. They didn't do that, so we'll see how fuel efficient this thing still is. It should still be able to work pretty good, but we have to wait a little bit longer for that transfer window. So let's actually take a look at that. Now, the transfer window is, like I had already detailed, about a few degrees more slanted, so it needs to go a little bit further to actually go to it. So let's wait a little bit of time, which shouldn't be an issue because I don't think anything's really going on right now. Yeah, so we'll just can't time accelerate past 50. Alright, that could be bothersome. Let's see, is Moho even moving at any pace? Probably not. Yeah, it's not moving a lot. You know what, maybe we are close enough in the transfer window to make this work. So, about here, basically we want to go on the inside of the sun, the inside of the orbit facing the sun. We'll add a maneuver, and we just want to slow down. And I say slow down even though we're speeding up, because relative to the sun, we are slowing down, which means we are going to fall in our orbit. So while we're doing this, let's set Moho as our target. We don't need Flight Engineer either anymore. So we actually need that maneuver node again. And now we can actually take a look at this. So let's see, we want to encounter Moho, which means we have to decelerate a decent bit. And let's take a look. What was that? I saw that there was some markers. Let's see. So, the target position at our closest approach, meaning that we need to get there faster. Alright, we can probably get there much faster. So how about we angle this a little better? So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to make it so relative to the sun we're kind of moving more retrograde. So if you look, the purple line matching up with the orange line kind of indicates that as more relative to the sun we're moving retrograde instead of relative to Moho, even though it's at a weird angle. But we'll see. Maybe this will help us. We can actually open up the nav ball too to get a look at our delta V that we're going to be consuming. So this gives us a more skewed angle, and it actually looks like we can get a much better encounter with this skewed angle. So now, because the target position at closest approach is in front of us, we're actually moving too fast, so we'll need to slow down. Although, I think this is a pretty good intermediate point. Like, I think this is a really good spot that we can start with, and we can edit this up later with more maneuver nodes in the future. So I'm going to go with this, because I think it's pretty good. So let's see, what's our burn time? 15 minutes. Well, that's going to take a little bit of time to actually pull off. So, yeah, that's actually going to take a lot of burn time. We're probably going to have to do it over a couple of passes, since I don't think burning 7.5 minutes beforehand and afterhand of the maneuver node is going to be very good, since an orbit around Kerbin isn't very long. We'd basically have to face the planet when we did the burn. So we're probably going to have to do 2 or 3 passes around an orbit. And it's actually probably a good idea to show that if you have to do something like this, because I went for efficiency rather than speed on this one. So as you can see, we're using the Poodle liquid fuel engine and a bunch of more fuel, rather than using the heavy-duty engine to make this burn faster. I went with the more efficient burn. So of course our thrust-to-weight ratio isn't exactly 1. It's actually 0.3 for this instance. So very low thrust-to-weight ratio, but it does keep things pretty efficient. So I'll show just kind of how you might want to do something like this when you have to do multiple passes to do a burn. So let's see, estimated burn is going to be 15 minutes. Now, if we want to do this burn half and half, whereas we are right now, let's actually tell our computer, because we have the fanciest computer, well, not the 2.5 meter, but the fanciest 1.25 meter part, so we can actually point it at maneuver nodes for us, which will be nice. And as you can see, we would have to start burning now. I don't think that'd work out for us. I think we would dip into the atmosphere at this point if we started burning right now for 15 minutes. So we're definitely going to have to do more than one pass, which means if we're going to be burning for 15 minutes, let's see if we can get away with 3.5 instead of 7, meaning that would divide it between 2 passes. Although even just doing one pass, doing a very small amount the first pass is pretty okay, or it's better than trying to do the whole thing. So if we're going to break this into 2 passes, instead of 7 minutes, 3.5 minutes. So we'll wait until then at about the node. So we do 3.5 minutes on each side just to see what that looks like, and it should look much better. So of course node is going down on 4 minutes, and it looks like it's probably going to be possible. You know what? I don't know. I don't like facing the planet when I'm in a low orbit. Even though I doubt we would actually go inside the planet, I don't really want to risk it, just because we are going to be burning. Yeah, I don't think I want to risk it. So let's just play this a little safer. So we'll go for 2 minutes on each side, and that will drop it down by 4 minutes since we're going to do 2 on each side, which means it's going to be about 11 minutes the next pass, which should be much more realistic to do, since we might be able to do it in 1 pass, or we'll just have to do 3 passes, we'll see. So now that we're at 2 minutes, we're just going to go full throttle, and we're going to burn 2 minutes on this side and then 2 minutes on the other side. And what that is basically going to do is it's going to cause our apoapsis over here to raise up some, and then we're going to go across the apoapsis, and when we come back, since the periapsis will not be changed very much, just by probably a couple 100 meters, since the periapsis basically will be the same, what's going to happen is we're going to be able to burn again and keep raising our periapsis to make it so that it's almost as if it was 1 burn, but of course we stretched it across 2. So how about we finish up this burn and we'll be back. And there, I was waiting for this fuel tank to run out of fuel. Now we didn't quite do 2 minutes on the second side, we only did about 1.5, but we're just going to work around that. And the reason I'm doing this is because since we didn't get the launch stage as far as I thought it would go, initially I want to play this a little more efficient. So these 2 tanks were originally going to drop at the same time. I'm going to change that. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take these 2 tanks, and I'm actually going to pump the fuel out of 1/2 of them, and I'm going to drop one of the tanks right now. That way I have a little less mass on my second pass of trying to complete this maneuver node. So there we go. This tank piece should be completely empty, which means now we just can tell it to decouple, by of course finding the decoupler and saying decouple. And then we're going to find its matching pair, which should be this one over here. And this one should have the same amount of fuel in the bottom half, and then in the top half we fill up the other one. That way we of course balance the sides so this thing doesn't have some strange roll that we can't really cope with. And now that the fuel's transferred, we can drop this piece too. And of course we'll say decouple. That way these 2 pieces are still matched. And of course, let's see, this top one is full on fuel. The 2 side ones are full. And then of course we have these 2 other ones that will drop next. So we're just trying to be a little more efficient. This will probably cut our burn time by a little bit, since we're dropping some dry mass. But we'll have to see. So, if we look at our orbit now, because we're going to get back to this kind of node thing, the first thing we need to do is go to our node and just tell it the next orbit is when you're going to actually do yourself. And what that's going to do is it's going to actually change up our entire thing, because it's redoing the entire delta V for our burn when we swap it to the next orbit. It's not maintaining what it was, it's resetting to the original node. So all we're going to have to do is reduce it by about the amount that we had burned. Basically, we want to match the delta V now. So I know that I spent about 500, so that's what I'm going to aim for, but I'm also going to use the map view and Moho to kind of redetermine where I want to go, since there might be a little bit of a discrepancy now that we're waiting a little longer. So let's see, there's that same encounter I had before. We're at about 1542 for delta V we currently have to spend, and I think that's good, so we reset our maneuver node. That's what we wanted. And now what's going to happen is we're going to go around our orbit, so we can close out of the maneuver node, or it's not going to close out. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the apoapsis of the orbit, and then when we get back to the periapsis, what's going to happen is it's going to be unchanged. Because the periapsis was about 80 kilometers last time, it's still 80 kilometers. Now, I'm thinking, since it's a 9-minute burn, we would have wanted to burn at 4.5 minutes, but again, we're facing the planet, which isn't something I want to do, since burning towards the planet can cause you to crash if your periapsis here isn't high enough. But I think we can finish this burn in one go. So at 3.5 minutes, I'm going to start this burn, because I think I can get away with burning toward the planet without any difficulties, since I don't think where I'm currently at, burning basically in this direction, I don't think it's going to force me into the atmosphere. Even though it is going to reduce my periapsis, I highly doubt it will cause me to dip into the atmosphere and then crash, or of course have to fight the atmosphere for any amount of time. Now, because we're starting at 3.5 minutes, what's going to happen is we're going to have to burn more on the other side of this node, but that shouldn't throw off the balance too much, since we are going to be flat out leaving Kerbin's sphere of influence by that time. So it really shouldn't matter that much compared to something like the sun. It would matter more if it was a shorter distance, but since it is a long distance, burning half and half doesn't really affect it all that much. Anyway, we're going to have to go through with this burn, which is going to take another several minutes. Of course, dropping that secondary tank, and then even the final tank probably is what we're going to have to do, since all of the fuel is being dumped out of this end, this fuel tank, and then this one, and then I'll drop it, and then I'll have these two left, just kind of drop tanks. That way I get more fuel efficiency without added weight of engines. Anyway, we will be back when this maneuver node is just about done, since we're going to be completing it in this run. Yeah, you can see already my apoapsis is raising pretty much out of Kerbin's sphere of influence by this point. But yeah, we will be back. And there we have it. We're done with that burn, so I already removed the maneuver node. And if you look, we actually don't have our encounter anymore, but we're going to actually end up fixing the whole thing now, since we're going to be out of Kerbin's sphere of influence. So let's just play with the maneuver node a little bit until we actually get our encounter site back. And it shouldn't take any more than 100 delta V in any direction to kind of do that. So let's just see. Still not, which means it's probably going to be one of these purple directions. So let's remove that, add a new one. Or not purple directions, but blue. It's going to be a timing issue, not really a speed issue. So let's see. When are we supposed to encounter you? It looks like we need to be going faster. So, in order to go faster but maintain about the same window, what we're going to do is add our maneuver. We're going to both accelerate. Oh wait, we just saw markers right there for a split second. Let's see if I can't get those back. Just being patient with the maneuver node and slowly reducing it, because I did see them. And they were going to actually give me the exact information I needed. There we go. So, let's take a look at these. Of course, with the very, very bright sun in the way. But, yeah, it's very bright. Basically, closest approach, and then the target at the closest approach. So the target is actually ahead of us, which means, yeah, we do need to speed up. So, in order to speed up, we just need to increase our velocity. But if you notice, that makes it so we no longer encounter it. Well, how do we fix that? Well, we change the window, our timing basically. Basically for this, if we burn radial in, then we will cause it to meet at a different point, at a different intersection, which will allow us to keep speeding up, which will allow us to, of course, keep meeting at a different intersection. So now the target position, now we're moving too fast. So now we have to slow down a little bit, and of course now burn radial out in order to push it back and slow down some more and keep pushing radial out until, of course, apparently we missed it. So we'll just have to keep kind of playing with these until we get something that's a good encounter. There we go, we just had it. There we go. So with a periapsis of 5 million meters, that's not too bad. We can, of course, make that a little more accurate later on when it's easier, since being this far away does make it quite difficult to do. So let's see. Now, where's this maneuver node going to make us point, I guess? Because I'm curious, we don't have a lot of solar panels, so I want to make sure that... Oh wait, we have a Kerbal. It doesn't actually matter if we run out of charge, does it? I know that if I get this at the wrong angle and I ran out of charge, then I wouldn't be able to control it. But I mean, we still do have a Kerbal, so even though we wouldn't have SAS, we'd have at least some controls that would give us the ability to roll it, which would allow us to get electricity to, of course, use it again. But I'm just remembering this from when I tested the thing as a probe to make sure that this would at least get to go to Moho. I didn't actually test it. I tested it getting to Moho, and that's why I knew it took a little less than I expected, because I don't like to just run these larger craft blind. I like to at least make sure that they will do half the mission. So I don't know about returning, landing, or anything, which is our goal for this. We are planning to land it. But I do know we can get... I did know we could get to Moho with a reasonable amount of fuel left. So let's time accelerate until we get to our maneuver node. 6 days away, 1 day away, a few hours, a few minutes. And I just want to time accelerate until it's just a few seconds away. And there we go. So, we're pointing towards our maneuver node already. Only about 100 meters per second that we have to change in our velocity, which is really good since we're far away from Moho. The more fuel we spend, the more effect we have, basically. So as long as we have distance, we have a very strong effect. Let's accelerate and just do this maneuver node really quickly. And that will get us most of our encounter with Moho. Of course, we'll get a little closer with our periapsis a bit later. And I just want to try and make this quite accurate. So 7, 4, 3, 2, 1, cut. I'm actually going to go a little more. There we go, 0.0 meters per second difference. I'd say that's pretty accurate, and we do have our encounter at about 5 million meters. And I honestly think that I'm going to try and make that a little more accurate before the end of the day. So let's see. About here should be a good spot to try and do that. So I'm just going to add a maneuver for now, and then I'm actually going to target Moho, much like what we've done before. So I get this periapsis line over here, and I get the nice bright sun just being a bother, but we'll have to cope with it. And now that I have my maneuver node over here, and I have my line there, you can observe that I can't make the changes yet. Am I still too far away? Yeah, that should be affecting it, but it's not. So that node might have been a little too far away. So let's try here then. Add a maneuver node there, and this one might work. Alright, I figured out the problem. I noticed the line color was a little weird, and that's because I actually have two lines. I have a blue line and a purple line, and I've been clicking on the purple line. So I'm actually going to add a maneuver to the blue line where I can zoom in, and then I'm actually going to just like drag it back. I didn't want to delete it, because if you look when I mouse over, I get the purple bubble, which means I'm trying to build this maneuver node on a purple line, which is not this orbit, not the one I'm in. So add a maneuver on the blue line. I gotta be a little more careful with this one. So make sure I don't accidentally delete it. That way I can use it. Since of course the maneuver node lines are being strange like they usually are. But now we should have an effect on it, and yeah, I can already see it is going to. So there we go. If we look at our periapsis, we are changing it. And I think we need to move it down this way, and then move it in probably. So this is a very strange angle to try and do this with. I wish I could get a different angle, but I don't think that's going to happen. So let's see, move it down more. Just trying to get us a pretty close periapsis, but I'm not aiming for perfect. And of course I keep having to rotate back and forth. Whoa, we're actually going to hit the planet. We don't want to do that. Because this angle is strange and the sun's very bright, just kind of being a blinding nuisance. Let's see, Moho periapsis, 121. I'm going to say that that is pretty good. You can see how much just turning at this distance affects my periapsis. So just the rotations of this craft was causing the current orbital trajectory to jiggle a little bit. But we can turn this up a little more. And get ready for this burn, which is not really going to happen anytime soon. So, are we... Oh, we're fine on fuel and electric charge. Is it going to point me towards my maneuver node yet? Or is it just having some difficulties? Yeah, the computer's working on it. Shouldn't be too much of a problem then. So we'll wait until it points toward it, and then we'll just time accelerate until this node. And 33 days from now, I think we're going to have to make a quick stop at the Duna mission to transfer the science back before we send it, since it's not quite the Duna transfer window. That's why we're doing Moho first. 33 days. It's going to be getting close, though, to Duna's transfer, so we'll probably end up taking care of that next time or the time after, depending on when we do all the Moho stuff. Well, we can't do Moho yet, I guess, since Moho's going to be transferring. So it'll definitely have to be next time that we'll take care of Duna, unless we go to a different celestial body. We'll see what happens then. Anyway, I'm going to take care of this quick maneuver node, and then I'm going to go to Duna and check out the science. But we will see where we end up next time. This is PTT GRW, signing out.